So this is in context of the technology education program in UL. So it's a 4-year undergrad program. This particular, I focused for this module, it's a year 4 module, and the students in year 3 would have really focused on a social perspective. So this year 4 module is trying to bring together both the social and now the environmental perspectives in their module. So it really is trying to get the students to have a more holistic understanding of sustainable development. The next slide. This is just a module overview, a rationale for the module. So unlike Kevin's previous statement that the development education perspectives are not explicit, and touching on what Melanie said as well in terms of how these core aspects of the Keelin standards now, they should be more integrated and brought together. And that's how we brought the development education into this module. It's through the critical thinking aspect, because it is a key learning outcome of this module, the creativity and critical thinking. And that's how we've brought in development education into this module. This is a year 4 module, so students have to demonstrate the naturalization aspect of their craft skills. So it is a craft module, but in this module, we've brought in development education that they have to upcycle. So in their material use through this craft module, they have to use 80% upcycled material. So that's how we kind of drive in the environment perspective as well into this module. And from the previous year that we had this module running, students, I'd say about 50% of the students actually upcycled 100% of the material. And they also had a more holistic view in terms of, do we need to use a machine now to process the material, or can we use hand skills? So they really brought in the kind of greater perspectives of what they were doing in this module. The next slide then. So this is just the context. So it is contextualized in the senior cycle construction study syllabus, because we are training teachers of these subjects at 2nd level. The Keelin standards, we try to bring them in, integrating the creativity and critical thinking, and then also the global citizen education perspective. As I said before, it's the creativity and critical thinking were the mechanism that allowed us to bring in the development education. And then the next slide then just shows how the students had to, I suppose, show this. So they were allowed to pose their own problem statement, and they had to address a real world social and environmental issue. One of the issues I suppose we have with the social perspective is many students do it from their own stance. And this is where, how do we get them to actually really get a broad view of the world around them? Design thinking is a brilliant mechanism because it really is about empathy of the user. And this semester, we're really bringing in kind of a cultural diversity awareness through Anna Rosling Ronwood's, if you've ever come across her gapfinder.org, Dollar Street, where it really allows you to look at the world. You may think that as a student, oh, I'm very poor, but if you actually compare yourself to Brazil or to another student looking even at front doors of people's homes, what they use to feed themselves, it really broadens students' awareness of the world around them and puts them in a kind of a broader perspective of social context and empathy for the user that they're designing for. Then from the environmental perspective, we really get them to connect to the social issue. It's not just the upcycling aspect of the 80% material. We really want them to say, okay, in this social context, what are also the environmental perspectives? For example, if it is biodiversity, so what could they use in terms of, or what could they really expose the students to in an environmental perspective? Also, they have to design a learning experience as well as a design thinking logbook and an artifact, which is conceptual now this semester. They also have to then, from this whole module, create a learning experience for teachers that are out in school. So it's almost like a CPD framework that they have to say, well, how would you actually upskill teachers in the classroom now in terms of how they could integrate this particular project into senior cycle construction studies. So that's the other perspective. So overall, the last slide then, Deirdre, sorry, it's what the overall output from this module is, that it's really trying to develop students' conceptions of sustainability, both from their practice and their product. So it's what they do, even a skill set, the ideology behind it, the knowledge that they gain. And that's really looking at the craft perspective, but then looking at the product, they have to look at the life cycle and assessment of the material that they're upcycling. Is it from sustainably managed forests? What are the indigenous species and also populations that it's coming from? The aesthetics of the product, does it have a value system for the user? And then right down to the immaterial aspect, which is looking at their own philosophical and also the psychological, also the ethics behind what they're doing. So it's really trying to bring this from their year 1, 2 and 3 modules. It's more of a holistic orientation, not just about practice, not just about product, but really is the material aspects as well, and the social perspectives overall. So it's really trying to get the student to question and be more critical of what they do in the classroom from their own stance about what material they use, but then also what they're doing in terms of the product that they're creating and who's it for, and etc. So it's kind of trying to get a broader critical concept from the student stance. So that's the overall module.